2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. Are we working towards reconciliation or divorce?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers. We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. What is going on, you guys? Tyler here alone again today. Brannon is still in Europe, enjoying a trip with his wife. He went back to, it's funny, he went back to London, England. I mean, he's also spending some time in Ireland, and everybody thinks that because our last name is Patrick, we're Irish, so he's going home to the place of his roots. But the truth is that we were actually Greek. Our last name is Papageorgia. And my great-grandmother, to try to avoid discrimination back in the day, changed our name from Papageorgia to Patrick. So she went from not wanting to be discriminated for being Greek to being discriminated for being Irish instead. But anyway, I hope Brannon's having a good time, and we will have him back. I wanted to just share another real quick review. We've gotten so many. I just want to share this one. It says, "So thankful. Finding this podcast was a God thing. I was led to it. That was a year and a half ago. Since then, my husband and I have taken the leap into real recovery and healing. I continue to listen to this podcast and get so much from it. Thank you." Well, thank you too. Thank you for the review. I'm so glad to hear of your success. It is so nice to hear of people's successes in recovery, because this road sometimes feels so long and hard. But if there's anything that I would want for any of my clients or any of you listening is that this thing that we call recovery is hopeful and it's beautiful, and there is absolutely real change that can take place regardless of what the outcomes are in our lives. So glad you're here with us. All right. We have a great guest today with a really pretty complex question with a lot of stuff in the midst of the question. So, Crystal, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. Why don't you just kind of give whatever background you feel comfortable with and ask your question, and we'll go for it.
So recently I just had a big disclosure from my husband, who's been struggling with the addiction of porn and then also acting out on that addiction with another woman. But I really don't even want to say that it's because of the porn he's been acting out with this woman. This woman just has been in our lives now that I'm finding out we've been married for 15 years. It seems like she's been here on the side the entire time. And I've actually gotten 2 disclosures within the last 12 months because he's just giving me more and more information. But through each disclosure, I feel like he's kind of pressuring me to make the decision of, okay, what are you doing? Are we going to get a divorce or are you going to stay here? I've told you the truth and kind of like, here it is on the table. You need to let me know. But to me, that's not a easy, I don't even know how he gets there, but that's not an easy decision because it's just like, whoa, I just found out all this information like the last 15, 16 years of my life that I'm thinking we're living one way, but we're not. So it's kind of like, I don't know what to think right now. And he keeps like, well, it's been 6 months since I've disclosed. It's been 9 months. But it's just like, I just feel somebody just came. My life was a puzzle. They came and just tore up the thousands of piece puzzles. I don't even know where to even begin with, like, even trying to think to make a decision. And like, what hurts the most is like, we are both Christian and we take that very like seriously. We have 4 kids, instill that in our kids that like, it's no other way but like Jesus Christ. And I just found out he's had an affair with this woman. Recently, it's been a physical one. And before, it was a physical one also, like 10 years ago. But in between these 2 physical affairs, he's been maintaining contact with her. So I even say it's an emotional affair. He's been talking to her about our problem, and it's been him that's reaching out to her. And he admits that, and even she admits that. But I just asked questions like what was going on, like who is she? Because at first he didn't even want to make it seem like it was still the same woman like so long ago. And I'm just like, I don't know what was going on. Because the biggest thing for me is like we have served together in so many ministries within the church. And you've been a deacon, you've been in like different leadership roles. And the one thing I just keep going back is how can like you hold my hand in prayer every morning, then every Sunday, like sit next to me in service, but yet like you're living a completely different life. And you're still like steady going on in church, like that's who you are, but that's not who you've been. And like if I ask questions like what led you to this or what led you to that, and of course he says the porn and like childhood issues. His mom, he's single mother, like his mom like treating him mean, and I'm not trying to downplay any of that, but it's just like at what point like do we start living in what we believe, who we are in Jesus Christ? So I thought I did so much work because I was raised for a single mother home too. She was pregnant with me at 17. So I grew up the oldest of 5, and my mother, she had 5 different baby fathers. So kind of like I grew up having to be the adult of my siblings and even over my mother. And I felt like I've done so much work in trying to recover from my own childhood issues. But now I feel like I could. Exactly how I used to feel as a little girl. I feel like that just all came back with everything I found out. And then I tell him, it's like, so what have we been doing? It seems like my whole life with you has just been a lie. But his response to that is kind of like, well, what hasn't been a lie? It just had cracks in it. And I'm like, those are some major, those are not cracks. Those are like giant holes. Like, but it, it just seems like it's he's downplay it a lot, and I told him I don't feel safe like telling you how I feel because it's it's always combated with something else. Oh, because you did this or that, instead of just taking the rap of like what you did. And I also told him I feel a little bit of spiritual abuse because he really doesn't seem remorseful. And it's like you're mad at me asking questions. Like, sir, what do you have to be mad about, right? Seriously, I want to know, why are you so frustrated with me? Like, I I could keep going on and on about this. It's just so many things. I feel like he's knocked me off of my spiritual road, right? And I just feel so disconnected from God and him and just life in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear it, Crystal. Like, even just, I mean, I appreciate your honesty and your rawness here with, I mean, you're basically just describing what I think almost every other betrayed woman feels at times, where you're going along in your life and for no reason that you've done anything wrong, all of a sudden you get thrown into like this washing machine, put on spin cycle and told to keep living your life and breathe, but you can't hardly breathe. And it takes everything out of you. It takes your physical health. It takes your emotional energy. It has stress on your spiritual relationship with God. It obviously has stress on your relationship with your husband. And then, of course, you're still trying to keep it together, and it's prevent it from spilling out into your other relationships and your work and whatever else you're doing. And I mean, I can hear that inside of you, that you're scrambling just to try to figure out how to get your feet planted again.
Yeah.
And then to add on top of it, the need or the pressure that you feel to hurry and make a decision probably doesn't help plant your feet on the ground very well.
No, because this is just like you just want to pass over it. But this is the last 16 years of my life. I'm like, you're rushing me to make a decision on. Like, that's not something easy to do. I mean, this is not just a hump to jump over and go about our day.
No, especially because that hump to jump over actually comes with a process and a lot of work that we call recovery that doesn't sound like it's actually being done yet in the ways that it would need to be done in order for there to be actual healing for him personally, for you personally, and then in turn for the relationship. And so that's why I think you're feeling this sense of like pressure and fear. And it's like, okay, we need to try to like slow this process down. And one of the things that I want you to leave with today, Crystal, is that in my humble opinion, you don't have to make any decisions quickly. In fact, the more that you can take that pressure off of yourself right now while we get through the first couple of steps, the better off you're going to be. Right. So, so let's start with your side of things first. And then there's some things I want to get into with like your husband's side of things too, that'll help be indicators of whether or not you're working towards reclaiming the marriage or working towards divorce and separation. All right. The first thing is that when you're in the space that you're currently in, I mean, I can feel it and sense it from you, all the confusion, all of the pain, all of that kind of mixed emotion of still loving him, but probably hating him and being, totally upside down. The first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that there are safe ways and safe places for you to get your emotional feet planted again and get grounded. Do you have access? Do you use any tools right now to do any of that at all?
Well, after the first disclosure, I said counseling, and somehow he turned that into like, okay, well, yeah, you need some counseling. So I started to go to counseling just myself. But it seems like when I would come back and try to talk about the counseling I was going, it was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad she feels, because the counselor was, I'm glad she feels that way. But it's just like, okay, what are you doing? and
Mm-hmm.
it was nothing.
Okay, we'll get to him in a second. Has the counseling helped you at all with being able to get your feet planted?
I guess it was based on like me trying to communicate like what I'm talking about in the session with the counselor, trying to communicate that with him. And it's just like I was unable to take what we talked about in the session to turn and try to have a conversation with him about that. And I don't know, to me, it seems like it was just met with a brick wall. Like that's something you need to work on.
Yeah. Right. Which again, we'll get to his side of things, but you're already getting some answers even in the way he's responding to you there. But before we get to those answers, how do you do it just being able to breathe on a given day? When's the last time you just took 10 deep, full breaths and allowed yourself just to be alive in this moment, just breathing?
It's primarily when I'm around my kids
Mm-hmm.
because I, it's with all of this, it's just a sense of I'm not needed, I'm not wanted. So, like when I'm with my kids and we're doing whatever, we have four of them, everybody's in some extra curricular activity. So, it's just
Mm-hmm.
me spending time with them because I know they need me.
Yes. And that grounds you, that puts you in a place of kind of like, at least in those moments, knowing, okay, this is part of my safe space. I'm at least able to kind of function in these areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. There's a couple of kind of core principles that seem to be helpful for people when they're in that kind of space of limbo land with like wondering what to do and what's happening and what's true and what's not true and all that stuff that you've been feeling. The first one is that, and this is a hard one for a lot of my clients. The first one is to get into the habit and a commitment of regular self-care and grounding, meaning that every day your emotional tank is on full drain every day right now. And so you're probably close to empty a lot of the time. And so it's going to be imperative that you build into your current life right now, even if you have to simplify some things, a few things every day that are targeted just to fill your emotional tank. Read a book, take a hot bath, call a friend, go to lunch with somebody, go for a walk, whatever it is to just kind of like put some energy in the tank. Heaven knows you're going to need that because you've got all this stuff that you've got to worry about and think about. And if you go on to empty, that's when the emotional roller coaster gets even bigger, right? So those things can also be very grounding for you to go for a walk and try to notice the feeling of the air on your skin or the way you're breathing, or to make a phone call to somebody that you can trust. I don't know if you have anybody or not right now, but to just let those feelings and those thoughts go somewhere where they can land and be heard can be very powerful. So that's the first thing. The next thing is continued education, which I think you're trying to do by going to therapy. You've been listening to the podcast. You could be reading some books or listening to other podcasts, things like that. That education is going to help you start to see your situation more and more clearly the more that you get it, right? The other thing that you need desperately is you need a way to have some emotionally safe space.
Yeah.
Whether that's a separation, whether that's a safe place in your house where you can go, where you can get grounded again, where you're not going to be smothered by like all of the pressure you feel from him or from other people. And that sometimes comes with some healthy boundaries that you need in order to create that space for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So out of those three things, the education, the self-care, and the safe spaces, how would you say you're doing in those areas?
The self care, I think I'm doing good because I love to work out. So me just going to the gym just to do that for 2 hours. That helps me a lot. And then, of course, with the kids. But sometimes it's just something that keeps me busy. And then it's when I do take a chance just to sit, that's when all the intrusive thoughts come.
Mm-hmm.
And like with my safe spaces, through what I've been reading in counseling, I've tried to like set some boundaries between us, but I'm just giving up on that because it was always some technicality of the boundary when it was broken. And so uh, sometimes it just seems like busy work when I'm at the gym or I'm doing, and it's not really me like facing it. Sometimes I feel like that.
And that's okay. Like there's moments where you will need to face it, and there's other moments where not facing it to give yourself a tiny little break is going to be okay, because we know eventually you're going to have to face it, and we'll get to that. But that's okay. So it sounds like team. What about a team? Do you have anyone else that you're talking to or getting support from right now that you could feel like you could trust?
So that was like even something more. We just moved to a new area, a whole new state, because we were living on the East Coast. And now it's like, okay, we get here, we find a church family, and then bam, it's like disclosure. So it's just like, I kind of feel like I'm by myself because I don't really, we're in a new space, new area. And it's just like, um, I don't, I don't, yeah. So it's just like, it's the counselor, and it's one of the older ladies at our church, but sometimes I just feel like I'm burdening her, putting the burden on her, even though she says, no, I'm not. And I kind of feel like that was forced and it didn't happen genuinely. So I don't know, and like how disclosure happened, like he disclosed with a group of his, it was like a recovery group going on in church, and that brought out the disclosure. And like he disclosed like to them first, his disclosure to me, and I didn't find out till after. So it's just like I felt like he took my safe place at church. And
Mm-hmm.
when I go there, I just feel like I'm a spectacle now because everybody, I feel like everybody knew something that I didn't know. Like I was the last person to find out. So
So that doesn't necessarily feel like a safe place right now for you yet either.
no.
Okay, so it makes sense that you're also feeling what you're feeling even at a higher level, because there's a few of these pieces that still need to be put into play here. We need to figure out and get creative how to get you a little bit more support and get you a team to go along with the self-care and the safety and the education. You're doing a real good job on the education, doing a pretty good job on the self-care. We need to get you a little bit more of a team and some structure. And I think that would actually help you with creating safety and setting boundaries too. Because right now you're on your own and those boundaries are messy and they're hard, and he's going to push back on them. And then you're going to want to give up on them the way that you have. And the interesting thing is that what I'm talking to you about right now is like what I would say, like the triage level of what we need to get you. We just need to get you back into feeling yourself again, back into being grounded, back into letting yourself think a little bit more clearly, because everything is swimming right now. And once we get that triage level done, then there's the next level of recovery work, which is where your discernment about whether to stay or go should really be happening. But it's going to be really, really hard to decide whether to stay or go when you're currently operating in the place where your emotions are truly a roller coaster right now.
Yeah.
Right. And you shouldn't, unless you have to, you shouldn't have to make those decisions that are that big until you're grounded enough to be what to be solid in the feeling of that decision instead of doing it out of exasperation or irritation or tiredness or all that other stuff. Right. So with temper the decision, let's get those few things in place first. I've got a couple of ideas about that I'll mention a little bit later on. But then the next step of that would then to be going into the places of not only am I going to stay or go with him, but you mentioned some things that I think are really important here, Crystal, that this happening with your husband has you feeling the same kinds of feelings that you had as a child.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hitting the nerves. I wrote down a couple of things. Not needed, not wanted.
Yeah. And it hurts because I feel like I did so much work to overcome that, like getting into church and really finding a relationship for myself in Christ. And I was part of this like ladies group for so long. And that was such a blessing. And I was so lucky because it was a bunch of older ladies in this group that met every Tuesday. And like their kids were the same age as me. So I was like the youngest, but like I got so much encouragement and like wisdom of like just being a daughter in Christ, being a mother in Christ. Like that helped me like find my identity in Christ. And not like I don't have to be that little girl with all this resentment. Like that helped me speak to my mom and like that was just truly a blessing to me. But like when this came, it felt like, bam, I just got knocked right back to that place.
Yeah. There's still some of that like inner child of you that's now doubting all the work that you've done and going, I thought I was feeling better about myself and I thought I was feeling connected to Christ, but now all these doubts and fears have come back in.
He even helped play a role in that. Like, I don't have to be like that statistic. Like, I don't have to carry that chip on my shoulder too. Like, he even aided in that. Like, he really inspired me just to see his walk in Christ. But it just felt like I got knocked right back to that little girl.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting when you go through this kind of thing. And this is why betrayal trauma is so difficult, especially when it relates to like what you're just describing with your relationship with Christ, is that how could this person who's gone and blown your world apart also have been responsible for helping you find peace in Christ?
And it's
right?
very confusing.
It's confusing and it feels almost like, man, like our brains want to go to all good or all bad. How could this person who's hurt me have done something good for me? And does that mean it was wrong? And does that mean it wasn't real? And does that mean like,
yeah, it's like what was true and what, like, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it. That's the confusion process of all of this, is what was true, what is true. And, I think you look at like, if we were to go into like examples in even the scriptures, you'd find that there's a lot of people that did a whole lot of good for God that also were not very good people sometimes. And that's confusing and that's hard. That's a hard question that we all have to wrestle with sometimes. And it sounds like in this case, the person who you wanted to trust most and should have felt the safest with, and who was actually a pivotal part of your journey, is also the person that's caused you the deepest amount of pain and the deepest amount of confusion. And so that is a big wrestle that you have. But the challenge is to try to actually do the wrestle and say, wait a minute, like I did at times feel authentic things between me and Christ when I was engaged in this group with the ladies at church, or when I was remembering who I was to Christ, even if it was my husband who helped facilitate that. Were those things true for me? And were they real? And can I find myself trying to reground to some of those places where I felt it before, regardless of how I was introduced to it? And that's hard. I don't know if you can do that or not. What's coming up for you emotionally right now, Crystal? What's going through you?
It is hard, and it's just very confusing. And I feel, it's easy to say like things is on the attack because I was part of that ladies group for 7 years. And it was like we got together, did Bible study, prayer, and more prayer. And it was very encouraging. But it's just like I was taken from that area since we moved states. And then like that was my group. I could go to that group and say, ladies, I'm struggling with this. Can you pray with me? But it's like I got taken from that group. Because I feel like, well, God, why would you move me from there so then I can be hit with it? And, it's just different, a phone conversation than me going to one of those ladies' house and like
Yes.
embracing me and like praying for me. So it's just like I got taken from the support group that I was just so fond of, and like, why? Like, what for? And sometimes I make the comment of, well, I just wish you would have never even told me anything. I just wish you would have just kept to yourself and just let me believe what our marriage was.
That would feel easier sometimes to have just stayed in a place of denial.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a true thing that a lot of us go through in our lives, that when we're forced to confront the things that most scare us or that we worry about the most, we'd rather sometimes just choose not to see them because of what the implications are of seeing them. I heard a quote, and I think I shared this in a past episode, but by Pema Chodron, that talks about the need for us to live in a present life where we're willing to experience 1,000 deaths, because it's the willingness to experience those 1,000 deaths where the growth is actually found. And what you're now experiencing right now is having been uprooted from a life that you were finally finding some stability and some security in, and you've been put in a new place without the structure you had, without the support that you had. And now this bombshell gets dropped on you, and you are truly, in a lot of ways, experiencing another 1,000 deaths. And there's something inside of that if in the belief of Christ, that somehow Christ can make that beautiful and wonderful, but right now it probably sure doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it causes even more confusion, and you're probably going through all sorts of anger, not just towards your husband, but towards God and everything else too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But when you're dumped out there in that place of no man's land, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably going like, amen, Crystal, like I've been there, I'm there right now, like, what do you do when you're dumped out in the middle of the nowhere?
Yeah, because it's like, I know, dumped out in the middle. I know that Christ is still with me in that middle of nowhere, but like it's just hard to feel that right now. But no, I know in my mind that like His grace is sufficient, but it's hard to feel that it's there.
Yeah.
But I know it though. But
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that you still know it, even though you've got all these other feelings, there's room to allow all of that to happen. So with the basics, Crystal, you've got your education, you've got the ability to try to create some safety for yourself. There's self-care. We need to be building you a team. Once those things kind of get put in place, then we want to be going after that childhood trauma that's still creeping up and causing it to feel even bigger. And we also want to start helping you discern what's really happening in your relationship here and what's real recovery, right? So I would suggest that there's kind of like some level, and this isn't a complete exhaustive thing, but there's some level of things to start paying attention to know which direction you're going to end up starting to go. And the beautiful thing is you can do this work regardless of whether or not he comes along. And it'll buy time for him to decide whether or not he wants to come along before you get to the point of making your choice. All right. So you're going to do the basics we just talked about. We're going to get those going for you. And then you're going to start working on that childhood trauma stuff. You're going to start working on healthy boundaries inside of your current relationship with him. And then you're going to start discerning whether or not you need to stay with him or not. And that'll be also part of your spiritual wrestle with Christ too. All right. As that's happening, and as you're doing those things, what you would likely be needing or wanting to see, although yours may be a little bit different than this, are principles in action of the way he's choosing to live his life that will tell you whether or not it's worth staying or going. All right. So if you're met with defensiveness, minimizing, rationalizing, justifying, blame, lack of ownership, those are all forms of denial that are going to indicate that he's not really trying to work towards a different outcome. Right. When he comes to you and he's saying, hey, like I just dropped this bombshell on you and it's been 6 whole months after I've lied to you for 16 years and you better hurry and make a decision about whether you want to stay or go. It's like, that's not recovery. That's, and I hope he's listening because I'm saying this in the most loving way possible. That's him being a small man.
And I guess that's what's really tugging on me, because it's like, I want to be with my husband, but sometimes it's like, do I want to be with the husband that I thought I had, or what is that? Because like I keep telling him, I just want to see, like right now, I can no longer take you on your word. I can only do from your actions. Like, so that's but it's just like, am I trying to coach him too hard, or because I want to see him change in that way? Or I don't know.
I wonder too if the coaching so hard is really from your place of not wanting to be rejected again, because that fear of being not needed or wanted is there. And in reality, if you're to focus on the things that I mentioned for your sake, for your heart, for your well-being, it would buy time for him to decide to do certain things. And so these are some principles that I think any woman who's in the same space as you would want to be watching for. Not perfection, but a commitment to the process. Is my partner taking ownership for the fact that he's got a big problem? And is he willing to do whatever it takes to not only make it right between us in whatever way he can, but to get better, because the things he's been doing are an indicator that his life is not in order. Right?
So, from what you said, well, I want to say a funny thing, but I guess it's really not funny. So he started to see a counselor himself, and he went to one of the ministers at our church for his wife to reach out to me, and we start talking. So his counselor asked me if I would want to speak to him. So I spoke to him. I spoke to the minister's wife, and he asked me, of course, what did they say, this, that, and the other. I told them, it's kind of the same stuff that we've been talking about, that I've been asking you, like, what I want to see. So I was like, so it seems like everybody's saying the same thing, but you're not really agreeing with it. And that, he didn't like that. It's just like, well, I'm glad everybody else know what I should be doing and not me. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. So what you got from him was his shame coming up inside of that. Oh, everyone else knows what I should be doing and not him. And what I would say to him, if I was happened to be talking with him too, is I'd be saying, how well has, kind of like the Macklemore song when he talks about doing it by himself didn't turn out so good. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to find some trusted people to actually help him navigate the fact that he's created a dumpster fire that he needs to figure out how to put out in his life. And that he has a problem with trying to keep one woman on the hook by lying to her and deceiving her, while also keeping another woman on the hook to use her and consume her through that whole process. And unless he can look himself in the mirror eventually, and this is a call to action for your husband, I don't know his name, but I believe he's probably a very good man. Who has a lot of problems, and that's what's causing you to feel confused here. That if you want to become the kind of man that you profess to be in the eyes of God, you need to become a man who's humble enough to accept his weaknesses and his strengths, to be willing to go to work on those weaknesses as if your life depends on it, because brother, your life depends on it the way that God intended you to live, to learn how to live an accountable life, to be willing to put yourself into places where you can receive feedback from people who've been there and done that, so that you don't have to play God anymore for yourself, to allow God to actually claim your life through the process of repentance, which means doing all the stuff the 12 steps talk about. Take ownership for it. Allow God to take control of your life again. Go make amends. Go do those things. And as you take action towards that way of living, you will find a deeper sense of peace and satisfaction in your life, and your wife will see you. And what I'm guessing, Crystal, is that you don't need to see him be perfect. You need to see him take ownership and go to work.
Yeah.
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 And if he was doing that, it would be vulnerable for him, but that would also start the process of rebuilding trust. And eventually, if that was happening while you did the work that we just explained and outlined, that gives your marriage the best opportunity for becoming new. It's not going to go back to what it was. Crystal, you've been through too much now to go back to what it was. It has to be reclaimed. It has to be reborn. And there's a possibility that your marriage could become far more than it ever was, but it takes that work. And if that work's not going to happen, and instead you're going to be met with a guy playing small going like, hurry and decide so I can hedge my bets because I can't make a decision and I can't cut this other relationship off. He needs to take ownership for that and stop that relationship tomorrow. He needs to go all in with the life that he's created with you and your beautiful kids. And if he's willing to do that, there's a process to work that will reclaim that marriage in ways that is beautiful and powerful. You know, I've been through a similar process myself, Crystal. I'm 15, 16, 17 years into the process now. And I remember those early days and how miserable they were. But I can tell you right now, 15, 16, 17 years later, that if I had to do it all over again to have the marriage that I currently have with my wife, that work would absolutely be worth doing. But you have to go through hell to get there. And if he's willing to go through hell with you, I hear that you're there to go through hell with him too. But that means all of the work that I just mentioned. And so when he comes to you and he says, hey, so are you getting divorced or not? What are you going to say to him?
Well, I don't have to answer that right now. That's not just a simple question to ask or to answer. No, it's work that needs to be done. I need to do work for myself, and you need to do work for yourself, so that we can maybe try to come together to do work for us.
Love it. You don't have to feel pressure to give him the answer he's looking for. Put it back. Say, I'm not ready to make that choice. There's a part of me that hopes we can make it work. But in order to do that, I've got to get more grounded. And that's going to buy you more time to decide what kind of a man you want to be. And I'm hoping that you decide to be the kind of man that you profess to be when you got me on my journey with Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now go and do it if you want to save our marriage. And surrender it. Give him back to God the same way you're going to go wrestle to give yourself back to God eventually. That's the way that works.
Yeah. Because I believe that he can, but just right now I don't feel like you're attempting like to do that. But I know because you haven't been in this position. You're vulnerable and you don't like how it feels. But like we can't continue to use that as excuse of, oh, it hurts and you're uncomfortable. Like we can't sit there.
No, you're right. I think that's the harsh reality of the situation you both find yourself in now is that every attempt to scramble away from discomfort is just going to lead to a different place of discomfort. Yeah. So you might as well choose the discomfort of hope and work and progress instead of the discomfort of doing things like you've always done them. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's just the reality that you guys are in. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, I should say fortunately, now it's come to a head where you can start to deal in reality.
Yes.
And so can he. Even though that sucks.
It does, and it hurts. But
yeah. Yeah. How are you feeling right now in this moment, Crystal, compared to where we started today? Tell me what's going on inside your body.
Well, actually, I kind of feel like it's just been a deep breath. Like I'm able to talk about how I feel or what made me feel this way or that way, but like you just listen. You didn't try to tell me how I should feel or I shouldn't take it that way. I mean, it's a relief because I don't have to like hold it inside me because I don't feel safe of sharing, how
Yeah.
I feel. You know, most
Yeah.
times I just be wanting to just talk about it, and just lay it out, like you know.
Yeah. And it's pretty telling that you said it felt like I just took a deep breath. I wish our listeners could see you because even your facial expressions are softer now than when we started. It's like you've finally got just a moment to take a deep breath.
Yeah,
Yeah. It doesn't mean you don't have problems that still need to be solved. You're going to have to deal with all this stuff no matter what, but you figured out a way for this moment to at least be grounded enough to go, okay,
yeah.
I don't have to scramble right now.
I got to release a little.
Yeah. You need more of that.
Yeah,
So, so kind of back to where I think you're at in the process. I laid out all the things, right? Where we don't necessarily need to get them all done at once, but the next piece that I'd really suggest that you really go to work on is you're doing self-care, you're getting some education. You need a little bit more of a team.
yeah,
And there's a few ways to go about that. There's obviously, I think there's actually a fairly decent community for the SA community in where you're living at. So you may look into like a 12-step meeting for partners for SA or SAL. The other thing that you may consider is looking at whether that's through your church ministry or even something else, maybe a therapy group for betrayal trauma might be very helpful. And I don't know what your schedule's like, but if you'd be interested, I would love to invite you to at least do, say, 3 months at no charge with one of my women's groups online. I don't know if your schedule will work, but I would love to invite you to do that because I think that you need a team. You need a place to call and do what you just did with me here.
and it's like I know I need that, but it's just stepping out there, like on that limb to do that, like in a group setting, and I because I feel so shameful, but it's not even me who like did
Yes.
anything, but I just still feel shameful.
Yes. I know. And that's going to prevent you from getting the help that you need unless you're willing to take that step forward.
Yeah.
So whether it's with me in one of my groups or somewhere else, that's going to be one of your next steps to look for. Okay. And if you'd like to, that offer is there for you. Okay.
Okay.
Um, as you stepped into those places, then the next pieces are where I suggest you would go is this feeling of not being needed or not wanted that goes all the way back to being a child. That's eventually the long-term play.
Yeah.
Because if you go to work on that and start to rewire how you feel about yourself, it's going to eventually change how you approach your entire relationship with your husband too. Because you'll know of your lovedness before your relationship with him instead of after. So, but that'll come with time and with process. And I would say give yourself permission to be in process. Everything you're going through is normal. Um, I know we're getting short on time. Any other thoughts or questions, feelings that you're having right now, Crystal?
No, not really. Like I said, I really feel like I just was able to take a deep breath right now,
Yeah.
as you're just reiterating things. that like I know I need to do is really getting like support. And that's really what I need to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm able to have these moments more of just able just to let it out in a safe place.
Yeah. Eventually come to some more and more clarity. You'll get clarity as you find those safe places.
Yes.
So, Crystal, thank you for your willingness to come on today and to share yourself the way that you did. I know that there are literally thousands of people who are listening right now going, oh, I feel the same way. Wow, like I'm not alone. So just your presence today is not only hopefully doing some good for you, but it's also doing some good for a lot of people who need that as well. So thank you for your willingness to put yourself out there.
No, thank you.
And for those of you listening, if this rings a bell for you or for somebody that you know or love, please share it with them and please help them to find and get the resources that they need to start taking this pathway forward too, because there is a path and there is hope. And at the end of that, regardless of how it turns out inside or outside of your relationship, there's the possibility of absolute healing and growth. So thank you guys.